Kaya pinili ka ng truck ni Benny.
No, say hi.
It's just,
Hi!
hello. It was just like 2 years old. Yung ano namin, down in country. Sabi ko, pumunta ako sa dinner. Punta kami diba sa dinner. I don't want this. Sabi ko, no. Sabi nung bumalik yan. Why? No, it doesn't meet my expectation. Sabi yung ganun. This is a very luxury car. I really don't think sabi ko, I want a truck. Sabi niya gano'n sa akin. Eh, you still have a good joy. Sabi niya gano'n. Ngayon lang ko nakakano na daw na hindi masaya sa ano.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want this, I want to trade it in.
Yeah.
Kasi pag nagigit mo dati, di ba? Hanggang tuhod. Inalignan ko dalawa. Bumili siya ng higit noon. Yung Wrangler, unang nalagan nila. Eh, nagkis mo ng makapal, yung Wrangler na ako. Ayun. Ako, no? Tapos pa yung nalubog yung mga kotse nila.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing today? Wonderful, very happy to hear that. So my name is Zach. I'll be your first mate and narrator for the next hour-long tour around our Toronto Harbor. More importantly, the gentleman sitting to my right, the incredibly talented Captain John. Everybody say hi to Captain John. There we go, right on, love that. So, Captain John and I are both fully licensed captains through Transport Canada, trained in all marine emergency duties, first aid, CPR, ballroom dancing, all kinds of fun stuff. This vessel is also fully certified through Transport Canada. We do have life jackets on board for everybody on the vessel. They are in the two big silver bins all the way at the back. Now, we do have 4 life rings scattered around the boat, and then we have a fully inflatable life raft up on the bow. No worries, I just have to tell you that legally we don't plan on using those during our harbor tour here today. One rule I do have, please stay within the confines of the boat at all times. Do not leave the boat until we get back to the dock. One very serious rule. Other than that, I will get into the tour. We're currently heading westbound down our Toronto harbor front. If you look off the right side of the vessel here, you'll notice a nice promenade area, a couple of restaurants, bars, patios. Nice place to come and spend a Saturday like today. It's important to note that it didn't always look this way. Until the 1970s, Toronto actually had the nickname of the Big Smoke. And that was because of all the pollution that used to line this harbor front here. We had big, heavy polluting industry down here. Back in 1972, the City of Toronto and the federal government actually partnered and commissioned the Harbourfront Revitalization Project, which essentially means we took all that big, gross polluting industry and we moved it up the road to Hamilton, Ontario. So sorry about that, Hamilton. We definitely got the better end of the bargain here. We do have a few relics from our industrial past. If you do look off the right side, you'll notice this large red brick building with the smokestack on it. It does say the power plant on that building. Can anybody guess what they used to do at the power plant? So they used to make power. There's no trick questions here on the tour. That was in fact a coal burning facility until 1980. Used to power the vast majority of the industry that used to line the harbor front. Right next to that, kind of behind the trees, we have this black and white building here. It does say the Harbourfront Center on it. That's actually a former coach bus garage from the 1940s. Today it actually serves as studio space for different artisans. You can actually go in there and witness them performing their craft. They do have painters, sculptors, textile workers, pottery workers, glass blowers, all kinds of very interesting things over there. Next to the Harborfront Center, we do have the Harborfront Center stage. Right now it's being used as a little bit of an outdoor pop-up area. Normally they do have large events in there. That amphitheater will hold about 3,000 people prior to COVID, obviously. That's a little hard to see, but you might notice this white footbridge that dawns the back of this little marina here. That is the Amsterdam Canal Bridge. That was actually a gift from the city of Amsterdam to the city of Toronto to celebrate the twinning of our two cities back in the 1970s. You might also notice that bridge from the film My Big Fat Greek Wedding. It actually happens to be the bridge where the two protagonists share their first kiss. It also happens to be where Captain John waits every single night hoping for his very first kiss. Right next to that, we do have the Amsterdam Brew House, that large brown brick building there. That was not a gift from the city of Amsterdam. That would have been a bit too kind of them. That was actually one of 18 identical warehouses that used to line the harbor front here. Back when we were that more industrial port city, we didn't have many cargo ships coming into the area. They'd need a place to offload. They would offload in a building that looked just like that. Today it's actually the Harborfront's largest bar and grill. They actually have their own microbrewery on site too. They brew 13 of their own kinds of beers. They're a very, very popular restaurant. As you can see, there's already a lineup to get in there. Right next to that, you'll notice this green roof building here. That is actually the Toronto Metro Marine Police Station. So Toronto, or Canada rather, actually has the longest discontinuous coastline of any country in the entire world, meaning that our coast guard is stretched very, very thin. They're responsible for an absolutely immense area. So in these larger metropolitan areas like Toronto, we will have a division of the local police pick up the slack for the Coast Guard here. Now to give you an idea, the closest Coast Guard station to our current location is out in Prescott, Ontario, which is east of Kingston, Ontario. They do have about a 3.5-hour response time here into the Toronto Harbor, whereas our Metro Marine Police Unit, they have about a 3-minute response time. So it's actually picked the best day to come on the tour that I could have possibly known of. It is the air show today. We have the air show here in Toronto every Labor Day weekend. So this will be going on for the next 3 hours or so. If we do hear one of those planes come by, feel free to get up, take a look, take pictures at it. I know it's not a regular thing that occurs here on the tour. I will stop talking if we do get interrupted by one of those aircraft as well. Don't worry, I'll pick back up wherever I left off. Keeping the eye out the right side of the boat there, you will notice the base of the CN Tower. I'll save talking about that for the latter half of the tour. We'll be a lot further out in the harbor. Everybody will have a much better view of it. I will, however, talk about its shorter, stockier neighbor just to the left. That is the Rogers Centre. Originally known as the Sky Dome, it is home to our Toronto Blue Jays. Now that stadium will hold about 48,000 people on any regular given day. The record number we've had in there is just over 68,000, and that was actually for WrestleMania 18, believe it or not. Now, Captain John will be making a turn south towards our Toronto Islands. The last thing I like to point out right over there, just like we have a Marine Police Station, we have a Marine Fire Unit as well. One of the boats is out being deployed right now. You'll see another one sitting in there with the red hull. Those are essentially our fire trucks out here on the harbor. So as we make this turn south, keeping an eye off the right side of the boat, you will notice out the western gap out there. That is one of two entrances and exits into our Toronto Harbor. The western gap will take you out to Lake Ontario. It was originally the only entrance and exit into our Toronto Harbor here. Today, most of the commercial shipping actually comes through the eastern gap, which is on the other side of the harbor, kind of directly behind me at this point. Now you might notice this island over here with all the airplanes marked out here on it. This is actually a very special island in our 15 Toronto Islands. Islands, given that it is the only one of the Toronto Islands that is actually man-made. Back in the day, our harbor here was very, very shallow. We had a consistent depth of around 15 feet, which is not very deep considering most of the large cargo vessels we have coming in here. They need about 25 to 30 feet of water in order to float comfortably in and out of the harbor. So in the 1920s, we underwent a major dredging project, which essentially meant we would take all of the sediment off of the bottom of the harbor here. We would dig it up, make the harbor a nice consistent depth of just over 30 feet. And then we took all that sediment and we piled it right over here to the left. Right side there is some interesting maneuvers. So as I was saying, this is the only one of the man-made islands in our Toronto Island chain here. It is home to Billy Bishop City Centre International Airport. It's really hard to compete with this jet, I gotta be honest with you. It's much more interesting. Anyway, Billy Bishop Airport is one of the smallest airports in the country today in terms of real estate. It actually has the shortest runway of any commercial airport in the entire country. It's just over 1,200 meters long. Now this airport also serves as the 9th busiest airport in the entire country, so just because of that short runway does not mean it's not a popular spot. The flagship airline out of Billy Bishop Airport today is Porter Airlines. They're a Canadian-owned and operated airline. They do operate one type of aircraft only, known as the Bombardier Q400. Now that's a 73. So as I was saying, they do fly one type of aircraft out of here, the Bombardier Q400. It's a 73 to 78 passenger aircraft, depending on the configuration. Now, Billy Bishop Airport here was actually named for a very famous Canadian World War I fighter pilot named Billy Bishop. He actually has a couple of very impressive accolades to his name. The first being he was actually considered a flying ace. Now, to achieve that designation, you need to shoot down a minimum of 3 enemy aircraft during combat missions. Billy Bishop is accredited with shooting down 72 enemy aircraft during his career. So we are very proud of Billy Bishop here in Canada. So proud, in fact, there's actually an airport in every province that does bear his name. Billy actually went on to become a field air marshal after World War I, meaning that he essentially went around and trained a vast majority of the World War II pilots. So he actually does have serviceable hours in both World War I and World War II. stuff I could talk about that was as cool as that, but unfortunately there really isn't. If you see the planes, just pay attention to those. I'll jump off the mic, don't worry about it. I will not be offended one bit. So we're currently going into our Toronto Islands proper here. The first island you'll see right over here, this is Hamlets Point. So there's that white ferry that's in there right now. That is called the Ongiera. Now that's actually a Nishnabek for Thunder of the Water. Now the reason it has that name is because it's a little bit of a special vessel in our fleet here. It is the only one of the Toronto Island ferries that is actually an icebreaker. So we do have residents who live out here on our Toronto Islands all year round. The harbor does freeze in the winter.
This is where you want to see. Hello. How are you going to get a more
All right, so the Hamlets Point here. So the Hamlets Point here was named after the Hamlin family. Now they were the first European settlers to settle over here back in the 1860s. Back in 1878, they actually built the Hamlin Hotel. And around that, the first entertainment district was actually created out here on Hamlets Point. They even ran a free ferry from Toronto here at Hamlin's to Rochester, New York, so that they could pick up our American neighbors to the south. Now during that time, we were actually going through a period known as Prohibition, so there was no access to alcohol in the States primarily. Here in Canada, we also had Prohibition, but it was to a much lesser extent. The federal government here in Canada actually allotted the individual provinces to decide which alcohols would and would not remain legal. Now in Ontario, we actually left whiskey, beer, and red wine legal. Now the Americans to the south had no access whatsoever, so the Hamlins used to run that free ferry. They would pick them up in Rochester, they would bring them up here. They could stay in the hotel, drink in the bars, gamble in the casino that was out here, and then go home on Sunday or Monday. Now, unfortunately for Hamlets Point, Prohibition ended back in the States back in 1933, and we lost a major revenue stream for the point out here. After we lost that revenue stream, unfortunately, Hamlin's actually kind of felt a little bit derelict. After the Prohibition ended in the States back in '33, we kind of went into a period in 1939 with the outbreak of World War II. Not a whole lot to celebrate out here. So the buildings out here on the point actually felt derelict until finally in 1954, Hurricane Hazel came through Toronto, and it actually demolished the remainder of those derelict buildings. Now by that time, the area was becoming Toronto itself was becoming a major metropolitan area. They didn't have a whole lot of park space in the downtown. So they decided they would not rebuild anything out here in Hamlets. Instead, they would leave it as preserved park space, and that is how it remains today. Now you can't come for a walk. They do have some nice walking trails, lots of green space over here to come and enjoy. Picnic tables, stuff like that, little barbecues. You can come bring charcoal and some food and grill some food up. They also have Hamlin's Wall out here, which is actually a very inexpensive place to dock your boat. You're allowed to leave your boat here for up to 4 days at a time. It's actually really inexpensive to leave your boat here. It's about $2 per foot per night, which is relatively inexpensive. If you have about a 30-foot boat, you can stay for about $60 a night. But I would say the best part about staying out here on Hamlets Point is probably the view. Now, I'd like to thank Captain John. If you look off the left side of the boat in just a minute here, you will see one of my favorite views we'll see on the entire tour. You will notice the CN Tower and the Rogers Center are flanked by both Lugs Island and Hamlets Point. We will come to a stop here for a minute. Feel free to get up and take a picture. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that view. If you didn't get the perfect picture, don't worry. We'll be back out on the harbor in just a minute. Before I continue with the tour, I do have one special announcement. I have been made aware that tomorrow is somebody's birthday. All the way at the back of the boat, we do have Kelvin back there. Everybody say happy birthday to Kelvin.
Happy birthday!
Wonderful. Thanks for coming.
Today's mine.
Is it your birthday as well? This is her birthday as well, everybody. Today, guys. Wonderful. Very exciting. So happy birthday to you all. I hope you're enjoying the day. We set up that air show just for you guys for a birthday gift. So we're currently going down a body of water known as Long Pond. Now this is a bit of a special body of water here in the Toronto Islands. It's actually the only one that was artificially lengthened and straightened. And the reason that they did that was because on the long weekends, not this one in particular, but on most of the long weekends in the summer, we actually host dragon boat races down this channel. And it was needed to be a little bit lengthened, so it's about 1 kilometer long from Hamlin's Wall to the Manitou Bridge that sits directly behind me. And there is also a red structure behind me. It's known as the grandstands, and that is actually the finish line for where they have those dragon boat races. Now you might notice the islands that flank us on either side now are a little bit more unkempt, a little bit more in their natural state than those that we passed on the way in at Hamlin's. That's because these islands are actually designated conservation areas. Now the Ministry of the Environment has determined that 5 of our 15 Toronto islands need to be left in their original state. Now that actually helps a couple of things. One, it helps to facilitate the mammal population that lives out here. Now we do have a lot of small mammals, squirrels, raccoons, beavers, minks, muskrats, even the odd coyote, the occasional white-tailed deer has even been spotted out here on the islands. But the primary reason for leaving these in their natural state is actually because Toronto and the islands lie on a migratory bird flight path. meaning that every given year we'll see 2 to 3 million birds pass through the area, over 250 different species of bird to be exact. So they do require a little wee bit of land out here in order to nest and feed and then carry on their way. Now, if you're enjoying the tour so far and you think, hey, this is wonderful, I could live out here on the Toronto Islands, as I said, there are residents who do live out here full time. Now, acquiring a house out here on the Toronto Islands is a bit of a difficult process. You can't just go up with your realtor and a big bag of money and say, hi there, I'd like to buy your home. And the primary the lottery. So the Toronto Island Trust, every single year they put on a lottery system. There's about 5,000 applicants that can put in for a ballot. Now, assuming that you do get drawn, your ballot does get drawn, congratulations. You actually end up on another waiting list. And that will be the long waiting list in that the last time we checked as a company here, it was anywhere from 48 to 55 years long. So that does take quite a while to get your own home out here. If you acted now, your grandkids might have a nice spot to retire if you'd like that. I do have one other recommendation as opposed to waiting 55 years. You do have the option, you can get on one of our public ferries over to Ward's Island. It's not a gated community. You can actually walk around in those neighborhoods. You go over there on the ferry, you walk around the neighborhood, you find somebody you fancy, and you get them to marry you. That would be a much, much faster way than waiting 55 years on the wait list, I promise you. Now, maybe you're already married, you can't marry somebody else to get your own Toronto Island home, maybe you don't have 55 years to wait. So there is, believe it or not, just one other option if you'd like to live out here on the islands, and it's coming up here on our right. Right over here is the Toronto Island Marina. So this is the only public marina in our Toronto Islands. The rest are yacht clubs, very expensive yacht clubs at that. And the Toronto Island Marina is primarily a live-aboard marina, meaning that these people come here in April and they live here on their boats until the end of October. You'll notice some of the boats do look a little bit non-traditional. You'll see this blue boat technically sitting here on the two pontoons. Looks like a small shed.
Nice.
Now there is no engine to that. There is no steering wheel. The only way it ever moves is if it gets towed. And then there are some other boats that you can see in here that look much more like traditional boats.
It's like one of those small houses.
Now, either way, the outcome is the same. The people do live on them for those 6 months in the summer. And I actually like to argue it is the most inexpensive way to live in downtown Toronto, period.
Yes.
Now, you will have to buy a boat. Those can be a little bit expensive, granted, probably $25,000 to $50,000 if you want one that you can actually live on, like these over here. But once you've purchased that boat, you can bring it over here. You can hook it up to all the utilities you would have in a Toronto condo on the mainland. You can even get Wi-Fi and cable hooked up to your boat, and it all costs as little as $500 per month. Now, when you consider that a condo, a bachelor condo over on the mainland will run you anywhere from $2,000 to $2,500 a month, it becomes a very inexpensive option for living in downtown. Not only that, you actually get to live out here in a little bit of the nature, which is kind of like Toronto's cottage country. You're not stuck with all that concrete on Bay Street or anything like that. And probably the best part about living here at the Toronto Island Marina is that all summer long, 10 times a day, you get to hear the exact same part of the exact same tour.
True.
Now they also have a little restaurant here, a little known restaurant over here. In those, you can kind of see those triangular shapes. They kind of peek between the boats every now and then. Right over there is a restaurant called the Upper Deck. Now a lot of people have the misconception that the Upper Deck is strictly for marina residents. It is not. It is actually a public restaurant. They have some of the best food and definitely the best prices of any of the restaurants that are here on the islands. Most of them are very inflated with the tourist kind of pricing. The Toronto Island Marina restaurant, the Upper Deck, is not that way. They also have one of the best skyline views of the city, in my opinion. So I'd highly recommend trying them out if you're ever over here for lunch or for dinner. Now the last thing I'd like to point out before we leave the Toronto Islands, just over my left shoulder here, we do have the Toronto Island Sailing Club. Now these people are absolute sailing fanatics. They love sailing. They actually run this program here. It is a member-owned and operated non-for-profit club. So all they do, they collect fare or premiums from individuals every year in order to help facilitate the lease on the property and to help buy new boats. They never make any money off of anything like that. And you can actually get your sailing instructor certificates completed here at the Toronto Island Sailing Club as well. Now the captain's just going to navigate a little bit of shallow water. You can see on either side of the boat here. We will be out back in the harbor as I promised in just a moment's time. You'll have a wonderful skyline view for about the next 10 minutes off the left side of the boat. Now I'll be here again. My name's Zach. I'm happy I can come and take pictures for you and your group or do anything like that, answer any questions you may have. I will play a little bit of music. I'll give you a much needed break from my voice, and when we come back, I'll talk about the CN Tower a little bit. Thanks.
Keep making really good time, and then you can cross there, it's a little bit. It's all worked out around 39.